The morning fog hung thick over London as Queen Camilla stepped out of her black Bentley at Heathrow Airport. She wore dark sunglasses and a long coat, trying to look like any other wealthy traveler. But the heavy security around her made it clear this was no ordinary trip. Sarah Mitchell, a royal reporter for the London Herald, happened to be at the airport covering a different story when she spotted the familiar figure. Something felt wrong. The Queen Consort was supposed to be at Windsor Castle for a charity event that afternoon. Why was she at the airport with so many suitcases? Sarah quickly called her editor. "I think I've got something big here," she whispered into her phone while hiding behind a pillar. "Camilla is at Heathrow and she looks like she's trying to escape." The security team moved quickly, escorting Camilla through a private entrance usually reserved for heads of state. But Sarah was determined to find out what was happening. She followed at a distance, using her press credentials to get closer. Inside the VIP lounge, Camilla sat nervously checking her watch every few minutes. Her hands shook as she sipped her tea. The woman who usually appeared so confident in public looked terrified. Her personal assistant, Margaret, kept whispering urgently in her ear. "The plane is ready, Your Majesty," Margaret said quietly. "We should board now." But Camilla hesitated. What if they find out? What if someone sees the bags? Margaret glanced around nervously. "We've been careful. The items are packed safely. No one will know until we're gone." Sarah managed to position herself where she could overhear parts of their conversation. Her heart raced as she realized this wasn't just a secret trip. Something valuable was being smuggled out of the country. The boarding announcement came over the speakers. "First-class passengers for Flight BA 405 to Switzerland may now board." Camilla stood up, her legs unsteady. She had made her choice. Whatever was in those carefully guarded suitcases was worth risking everything for. As she walked toward the gate, Sarah noticed how the security team formed a tight circle around several expensive-looking cases. One of the cases caught Sarah's eye. It was different from the others. Older, more ornate, with the royal crest barely visible under a cloth covering. Her journalist instincts told her this case held the key to whatever was happening. At the gate, there was a moment of panic. One of the airport security officers wanted to inspect the bags. Camilla's team quickly intervened, showing special diplomatic papers. But Sarah could see the fear in Camilla's eyes from across the waiting area. "These bags contain sensitive royal documents," Margaret explained to the officer. "They're protected under diplomatic immunity." The officer looked unsure but eventually stepped back. The bags were loaded onto the plane without inspection. Camilla finally breathed a sigh of relief and disappeared into the aircraft. Sarah immediately started making phone calls. She contacted sources at Buckingham Palace, but no one would confirm why Camilla had left the country so suddenly. The official story was that she was attending a private medical appointment in Switzerland, but Sarah wasn't convinced. Her investigation led her to speak with palace staff who had worked closely with the royal family for decades. One elderly butler, who asked not to be named, seemed nervous when she mentioned Camilla's sudden trip. "Strange things have been happening since the Queen passed," he whispered during their secret meeting in a small cafe near the palace. "Items going missing from the royal collection, security being changed, people being dismissed without explanation." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What kind of items?" The butler looked around nervously. "Jewelry. Very old, very valuable pieces. Some dating back centuries. The kind of things that should never leave the royal vaults." He explained that several pieces from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection had been moved recently, supposedly for cleaning and appraisal. But they never returned to their usual places in the vault. "The new Queen Consort has access to everything now," he continued. "She's been spending a lot of time in the jewelry rooms, claiming she needs to understand the collection for future state occasions." Sarah realized she might be on to the biggest royal scandal in decades. If Camilla was actually stealing Queen Elizabeth's jewels, it would destroy the monarchy's reputation forever. She spent the rest of the day gathering more evidence. Flight records showed that Camilla's private jet had made several trips to Switzerland over the past month, always with the same heavy security and mysterious luggage. Bank sources, speaking anonymously, mentioned unusual activity in Swiss accounts connected to shell companies. Large deposits had been made recently, coinciding with the dates of Camilla's mysterious trips. As evening fell over London, Sarah sat in her apartment surrounded by notes and documents. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but she needed more proof before she could publish such explosive allegations. Her phone rang. It was her contact at the airport. "You need to see this," the voice said urgently. "Security footage from today. It shows something you won't believe." Sarah rushed back to Heathrow, her mind racing with possibilities. Whatever was on that security footage could either confirm her suspicions or destroy her career. As she drove through the London traffic, she wondered if she was about to expose the crime of the century or chase shadows that would make her look foolish. The guard met her in a parking garage, looking nervous and constantly checking over his shoulder. "I could lose my job for this," he said, handing her a flash drive, "but people need to know what's really happening." Sarah took the drive with trembling hands. "What exactly am I going to see?" "Watch the footage of the baggage loading," he replied. "Look carefully at case number 7. When it's being moved, the lock breaks open for just a moment. You can see inside." Sarah's heart pounded as she realized she might be holding evidence of the biggest royal theft in British history. The Queen Consort of England might actually be a common criminal, fleeing the country with stolen crown jewels. As she drove home through the foggy London streets, Sarah knew her life was about to change forever. Tomorrow, she would view the footage that could bring down the monarchy or make her the most hated journalist in Britain. The city slept peacefully around her, unaware that one of the biggest scandals in royal history was about to unfold. In just a few hours, Sarah would discover whether her instincts were right or whether she had imagined the whole thing. But deep in her heart, she knew she was onto something huge. The nervous behavior, the secret flights, the missing jewels, it all pointed to one shocking conclusion. Queen Camilla was not the innocent royal wife everyone thought she was. The question now was whether Sarah would have the courage to expose the truth, knowing it could destroy not just Camilla, but the entire royal family's reputation. As she parked outside her apartment building, Sarah realized there was no turning back now. The footage on that flash drive would either make her career or end it completely. But one way or another, the truth about Queen Camilla's mysterious trips to Switzerland was about to come to light. Sarah's hands trembled as she inserted the flash drive into her laptop. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m., exactly when Camilla's luggage was being loaded onto the plane. She watched several minutes of routine baggage handling before her breath caught in her throat. There it was, case number 7, the ornate one with the royal crest. As 2 baggage handlers lifted it onto the conveyor belt, the antique lock gave way and the case opened slightly. For just 3 seconds, the contents were visible to the security camera. Sarah rewound and played the footage again, this time recording it with her phone. What she saw made her stomach drop. Nestled in velvet padding were unmistakable shapes: tiaras, necklaces, and what appeared to be the famous Cambridge emerald choker that Queen Elizabeth had worn to countless state dinners. She immediately called her editor, David Chen, despite the late hour. "David, I need to see you right now. I have footage that will change everything." Within an hour, they were in the newsroom staring at the security footage on the big screen. David, a veteran journalist who had covered royal scandals for 20 years, went pale as he watched the case open. "My God, Sarah. If this is real, we're looking at the biggest theft in British history." He paused the footage on the clearest frame. "That's definitely the Cambridge emerald choker. I've photographed Queen Elizabeth wearing it dozens of times." They spent the next several hours researching every piece visible in the footage. Using the royal jewelry database and historical photographs, they identified at least 6 major pieces from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection. The most shocking discovery was a distinctive diamond brooch that had belonged to Queen Victoria. It was supposed to be on permanent display in the Tower of London, not sitting in a suitcase on its way to Switzerland. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll regret it. Some secrets are worth killing for." Her blood ran cold. "David, look at this." David read the message and immediately called palace security. "We need protection. If Camilla is willing to steal crown jewels, she might do anything to keep it secret." Meanwhile, in Switzerland, Camilla sat in a luxury hotel in Geneva, unable to sleep. The weight of what she had done was crushing her. She had convinced herself that she deserved these treasures after everything she had endured during her long relationship with Charles. The plan had started innocently enough. Shortly after Queen Elizabeth's death, Camilla had been given access to catalog the late Queen's personal jewelry collection. She was supposed to decide which pieces would remain in the royal vaults and which would be displayed publicly. But seeing the incredible wealth sitting unused in dark vaults while she struggled to maintain her public image had awakened something dark inside her. Why should these priceless artifacts sit gathering dust when she could use them to secure her future? Her partner in the scheme was Viktor Petrov, a wealthy Russian oligarch who collected rare artifacts through questionable means. They had met at a charity auction where Victor had openly admired several pieces Camilla was wearing. "Such beautiful jewelry should be appreciated by those who understand its true value," Victor had whispered to her during the auction, "not locked away like prisoners in a vault." Over several secret meetings, Victor had convinced Camilla that she was simply rescuing these pieces from obscurity. He offered her £50 million for the collection, enough to disappear and live comfortably anywhere in the world. The theft had been carefully planned over months. Each piece was replaced with expertly crafted replicas that would fool casual inspection. The real artifacts were moved gradually to a secure location in London before being transported to Switzerland. But now, sitting in her hotel room, Camilla realized the magnitude of what she had done. She had betrayed not just the royal family, but the entire British people who saw these jewels as part of their heritage. Her phone rang. It was Victor. "The payment has been transferred to your account in the Cayman Islands. Once my people verify the authenticity of the pieces, you can disappear forever." "What if they catch us?" Camilla asked, her voice shaking. "They won't. By tomorrow, the jewelry will be on a private yacht in international waters. From there, it goes to my private collection in Montenegro. No extradition treaty with Britain." Back in London, Sarah was working around the clock to verify her story. She had contacted art historians, jewelry experts, and former palace staff to confirm the identity of the stolen pieces. Professor Margaret Thornfield, a royal jewelry expert from Cambridge University, was shocked when Sarah showed her the footage. "These are some of the most historically significant pieces in the royal collection. The economic value is enormous, but their cultural significance to Britain is immeasurable." Sarah also discovered that several of the missing pieces were supposed to be worn by other royal family members at upcoming state occasions. The theft would be discovered within days when the replicas were examined closely. Her investigation revealed a troubling pattern. Over the past 6 months, several palace security guards had been replaced, and new protocols had been put in place that gave Camilla unprecedented access to the royal vaults. One former guard, Thomas Wright, agreed to speak anonymously. "The new procedures didn't make sense," he said during their meeting in a secure location. "Why would the Queen Consort need to visit the vault so frequently? And why were we suddenly not allowed to accompany her during these visits?" Thomas explained that Camilla had often arrived with a small team of art historians who supposedly needed to examine pieces for insurance purposes. These experts were never properly identified, and their credentials were never verified. I raised concerns with my supervisor, but I was told to mind my own business. A week later, I was transferred to a different position. When I refused to go quietly, I was dismissed for restructuring purposes. Sarah realized that Camilla's operation was more sophisticated than a simple theft. She had systematically compromised palace security and created a network of accomplices to help her steal the crown jewels. The most disturbing discovery came when Sarah traced the art historians who had visited the palace. They were actually associates of Viktor Petrov, known for their involvement in international art theft and money laundering. FBI sources confirmed that Petrov was under investigation for several high-profile thefts across Europe. His network specialized in stealing culturally significant artifacts from museums and private collections. Camilla didn't just steal jewelry, Sarah explained to David as they prepared their explosive story. She partnered with international criminals to loot Britain's cultural heritage. The investigation also revealed that this wasn't Camilla's first involvement with questionable art deals. Bank records showed that she had been receiving payments from shell companies connected to Petrov for over a year. As Sarah put the finishing touches on her article, she received another threatening message. Final warning. Drop the story or face consequences. But this time, Sarah wasn't intimidated. She had enough evidence to expose one of the biggest crimes in British royal history. The only question now was whether she would survive long enough to publish it. That night, as she worked late in the newsroom under police protection, Sarah wondered how far Camilla and her criminal associates would go to protect their secret. The Queen Consort had already proven she was willing to betray her country for money. Murder might not be beyond her reach. The morning of publication, Sarah woke to find her apartment building surrounded by unmarked black cars. Through her window, she could see men in dark suits watching her building. Her heart raced as she realized Camilla's criminal network was making their final move to stop the story. David called from the newsroom. "Sarah, we're publishing in 2 hours. The lawyers have cleared everything, and we have police protection at the building, but you need to get here safely." Sarah dressed quickly and called her police contact. Within minutes, 2 armed officers were at her door, escorting her through the building's back entrance to avoid the surveillance team outside. As they drove through London, Sarah's phone exploded with messages. Someone had leaked that a major royal scandal was breaking. Social media was already buzzing with rumors about Queen Camilla and missing crown jewels. At the newsroom, chaos reigned. Phone calls poured in from royal correspondents, government officials, and international news agencies. Everyone wanted to know if the rumors were true. "The palace has issued a statement," David announced as Sarah arrived. "They're denying everything and claiming Camilla is in Switzerland for medical treatment." Sarah read the official statement. "Her Majesty Queen Camilla is receiving private medical care in Switzerland. Suggestions of any improper conduct are completely false and malicious. The crown jewels remain secure in the Tower of London." But Sarah's investigation had already proven this was a lie. Her contacts at the Tower of London had confirmed that several display cases now contained obvious replicas instead of genuine artifacts. The story went live at exactly 12 Tasmau p.m. Within minutes, it was the most read article in the newspaper's history. The headline screamed, "Crown Jewel Heist, Queen Camilla caught fleeing Britain with stolen royal treasures." The article detailed everything: the security footage, the expert authentication, the connection to international criminals, and the sophisticated theft operation that had been months in the planning. Public reaction was immediate and explosive. Protesters gathered outside Buckingham Palace demanding answers. Social media campaigns calling for Camilla's arrest trended worldwide. The British pound dropped sharply as investors worried about the stability of the monarchy. King Charles, who had been kept in the dark about his wife's activities, was reportedly devastated when briefed by palace security. Sources close to the king described him as shattered by the betrayal. In Geneva, Camilla watched the news coverage from her hotel room, knowing her life as she knew it was over. Viktor Petrov had already disappeared with the stolen jewelry, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Swiss police, responding to an international arrest warrant, surrounded her hotel within hours of the story breaking. Camilla surrendered without resistance, looking aged and defeated as she was led away in handcuffs. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of the crime. Over 40 pieces from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection had been stolen and replaced with replicas. The total value exceeded £200 million. Bank records showed that Camilla had received initial payments totaling £15 million, with promises of much more once the theft was complete. The money was supposed to fund a new life in a country without extradition treaties with Britain. Viktor Petrov was eventually tracked down in Montenegro, where he was arrested with most of the stolen jewelry in his possession. The international manhunt for his criminal network led to arrests in 6 countries. The stolen artifacts were returned to Britain amid massive security. Each piece was carefully authenticated and restored to its proper place in the royal collection. The replicas that had replaced them were so expertly crafted that some had fooled palace staff for months. Camilla's trial became one of the most watched legal proceedings in British history. She pleaded guilty to theft, conspiracy, and money laundering charges. Her defense argued that she had been manipulated by Petrov's criminal organization, but the evidence of her willing participation was overwhelming. The impact on the royal family was devastating. King Charles, humiliated by his wife's crimes, considered abdication before being persuaded to remain by government officials who feared the constitutional crisis that would follow. Public trust in the monarchy plummeted to historic lows. Opinion polls showed that a majority of British people wanted significant reforms to how the royal family was managed and monitored. Parliament launched a comprehensive investigation into royal security procedures. The findings revealed decades of inadequate oversight that had allowed Camilla to operate freely within the most secure areas of royal palaces. New security protocols were immediately implemented, including mandatory background checks for all royal spouses and independent oversight of access to cultural treasures. The scandal also exposed corruption within the palace staff. Several employees who had facilitated Camilla's access to the vaults were arrested and charged as accomplices. Sarah's reporting earned her numerous journalism awards and international recognition, but she took no joy in destroying the reputation of the royal family, knowing that her investigation had shattered the illusions of millions of people who had looked up to the monarchy. The trial revealed disturbing details about Camilla's mindset. Psychiatric evaluations suggested that years of public scrutiny and criticism had created a deep resentment toward the royal family and the British people. She felt entitled to compensation for what she saw as years of suffering, explained Dr. Rachel Stevens, the court-appointed psychiatrist. In her distorted thinking, stealing the crown jewels was simply taking what she deserved. Camilla was sentenced to 20 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 10 years. At age 76, it was effectively a life sentence. She would likely die in prison, remembered not as a queen, but as a common thief. The verdict was met with mixed reactions. Many felt justice had been served, while others argued that Camilla had been a victim of a criminal organization that had exploited her vulnerabilities. King Charles filed for divorce immediately after the sentencing, formally removing Camilla's title and royal status. She became simply Mrs. Camilla Parker Bowles again, a fallen queen who had gambled everything and lost. The stolen jewelry was put on special display at the Tower of London, with detailed explanations of the theft and recovery. Ironically, the scandal increased public interest in the royal collection, with visitor numbers reaching record highs. Sarah continued her investigative work, but the Camilla case remained the defining moment of her career. She had exposed corruption at the highest levels of British society and helped recover priceless national treasures. Years later, as she reflected on the investigation that had changed everything, Sarah wondered what would have happened if she hadn't been at the airport that foggy morning. Would Camilla have successfully escaped with the crown jewels? Would the theft ever have been discovered? The case served as a stark reminder that no one, regardless of their position or status, was above the law. Even a queen could fall from grace when consumed by greed and betrayal. The monarchy survived the scandal, but it was forever changed. The British people had learned that their most sacred institutions were vulnerable to corruption from within. Trust, once broken, would take generations to rebuild. In her prison cell, Camilla spent her days writing memoirs that would never be published, trying to justify actions that had destroyed her life and damaged a 1,000-year-old institution. But history would remember her not for her royal title, but for the greatest theft in British royal history. The crown jewels had returned home, but the damage to the monarchy's reputation would last forever. Queen Camilla had traded her crown for a prison cell, becoming a cautionary tale about the corrupting power of greed and the price of betraying the nation's trust. Sarah's investigation had proven that even in the modern world, the truth would eventually surface, no matter how powerful the people trying to hide it.